evening and welcome to the news at 10. Minister of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates Ayman al-Safadi and his Egyptian counterpart Sameh Shukri reiterated the centrality of the Palestinian cause and the establishing of an independent Palestinian state on the basis of the two-state solution. During their talks in Cairo ahead of the Arab Summit in Saudi Arabia, Safadi and Shukri said a solution to the cause is the only way to achieve security, stability, and peace in the Middle East region. In a joint press conference, Safadi said peace and security can't be achieved through violence, killing, and oppression against the Palestinians. The two diplomats condemned the Israeli violence against the Palestinians who exercised their legitimate right to protest against the Israeli occupation. On the Syria crisis, Safadi called for an immediate end to the humanitarian catastrophe in eastern Ghouta, calling for a swift and urgent end to this disaster and ensuring medical aid is delivered to the region's people. The Senate and the lower house of parliament condemned the brutal Israeli attacks on Palestinians during a demonstration near the Gaza-Israeli border on Friday, marking the anniversary of Land Day. In a joint session for the two chambers, Senate President Faisal al-Fayez called on international legislative and parliamentary associations, as well as human rights organizations, to shoulder their legal and ethical responsibilities and work to end the suffering of the Palestinians. Fayez described the Israeli aggression as a war crime, adding that the perpetrators should be punished in line with international charters and resolutions. The international community must realize that Israel, as an occupying power, is responsible for the aggressive acts, said Fayez. He noted that Israel will lead the region into a new war that will be disastrous for all. In the Palestinian lands, meantime, a tense calm descended on the Gaza border area where hundreds of Palestinians remained in tent encampments. Organizers expect more people to come back on Friday and rejoin the planned 6-week protest, pressing the right of return for refugees. Meanwhile, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the EU's top diplomat Federica Mogherini have called for an independent investigation into Friday's massacre. The United States, however, blocked a Kuwait draft UN Security Council statement that would have called for an independent investigation, while Israel's defense minister rejected calls for an inquiry into the killing of 15 Palestinians by occupation forces. And Pope Francis, in his Easter address in St. Peter's Square, called for peace in the Holy Land 2 days after 15 Palestinians were killed on the Israeli-Gaza border, saying the conflict there does not spare the defenseless. The Pope made his appeal in his City and the World message from the central balcony of the Basilica to tens of thousands of people in the square below, where he earlier celebrated a Mass. Francis also appealed for an end to the carnage in Syria, calling for humanitarian aid to be allowed to enter and for peace in South Sudan and the Democratic Republic of Congo. In the occupied West Bank, Christians marked Easter with a Mass led by acting Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, Bar Battista Pizzaballa, at Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Hundreds of pilgrims came to the church in the Old City and sang hymns to mark the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Shortly after the service ended, hundreds of Orthodox Christians arrived at the church for a Palm Sunday service to mark the beginning of their Easter week festivities, led by the Greek Orthodox Patriarch of Jerusalem, Theophilus III. Orthodox Christians celebrate Easter a week later, when Palestinians and pilgrims from around the world attend the ceremony of the Holy Fire. Over to Syria, where Syrian fighters defended the last rebel bastion near Damascus, began evacuating the town of Douma. An agreement was reached to evacuate the Jaish al-Islam rebel fighters from Douma to the city of Jarablus in northern Syria. The deal comes after several days of negotiations to spare bloodshed in the city and will include setting up a Syrian government-approved local council in the city that will run its affairs after rebels withdraw. A new language teacher in a school in southern Finland has endless patience for repetition, never makes a student feel embarrassed for asking a question, and can even dance. The teacher, called Ilyas, also happens to be a robot. Ilyas is able to understand and speak 23 languages and is equipped with software that makes it understand students' requirements and helps it behave in a way that encourages learning. Nevertheless, human teachers' jobs are safe for now because despite the robot's skills in language, it is still unable to maintain discipline amongst a class of primary school children.
Paljonko on 67 plus 52?
In sports, American Sloane Stephens kept intact her streak of never having lost a final as she defeated Latvia's Jelena Ostapenko 7-6, 6-1 to claim the Miami Open title. After a tense first. And finally, for a quick look at the weather, relatively warm conditions are expected tomorrow as temperatures rise to become above seasonal average. Amman can expect a high of 25 degrees Celsius and a low of 10 degrees. Further south in the Gulf of Aqaba, hot conditions are in the forecast, with daytime temperatures at 33 degrees, dropping down to 18 at night. With that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Nancy Khair. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.